What if I told you that the loudest victories are won in complete silence? Your mind rebels against this truth. Everything you've been taught screams the opposite. Success is loud, achievement demands noise, power requires proclamation. Yet here stands the mountain, silent and unmoved, while shaping every river, every wind, every cloud that dares approach its presence. The mountain does not speak, the mountain does not boast, the mountain simply is, and in its being, it commands respect from heaven and earth alike. You live in a world drunk on noise, drunk on movement, drunk on the illusion that more action equals more results. Most people believe that if they're not constantly moving, talking, proving themselves, they're somehow falling behind. This is the great deception. The oak tree grows strongest when it grows slowest. Its roots push deep into the earth, while others rush toward the light. When the storm comes, which tree survives? The one that prepared in silence, or the one that grew fast and loud? You know the answer. Your thoughts never stop. From the moment consciousness flickers awake until sleep finally claims you, the mind churns like an angry ocean. Thought after thought after thought, most of them repetitive, most of them useless, most of them pulling you away from what truly matters. This is your first prison, the prison of the scattered mind. Watch how most people live their days. They wake already thinking about problems they cannot solve. They check their phones before their feet touch the floor. They fill every quiet moment with distraction. They mistake busyness for productivity. They confuse noise for importance. They are terrified of silence. Why? Because in silence they must face themselves. In silence there are no distractions from the truth of who they've become. In silence they cannot hide behind the comfortable chaos they've created. You can choose differently. The master swordsman draws his blade only when necessary. Most battles are won before the sword leaves its sheath. His presence alone shifts the energy of conflict. His calm certainty makes opponents doubt themselves. His silence speaks louder than any war cry. This is the paradox you must understand. True power whispers. Real strength requires no advertisement. Genuine confidence needs no validation from others. Think of water. It seeks the lowest places. It never fights against the obstacles in its path. Yet over time it carves through the hardest stone. It shapes entire landscapes. It sustains all life. Water doesn't argue with the rock. Water doesn't announce its intentions. Water simply flows. And in flowing it transforms everything it touches. Your transformation begins the moment you stop trying to transform everything else. Right now, as you hear these words, notice your breathing. Don't change it. Simply observe it. This is the first step toward reclaiming your power. The power to witness your own experience without immediately reacting to it. Most people live their entire lives in reaction mode. Something happens, they react. Someone says something, they react. Their phone buzzes, they react. They are like puppets dancing to strings they cannot see. But reaction is not response. Reaction is automatic. Response is conscious. Between every stimulus and your response lies a space. In that space exists your freedom, your power, your choice. Most people never even know this space exists because they're too busy reacting to everything around them. The moment you become aware of this space, everything changes. Sit with me for a moment in this awareness. Right now, thoughts are arising in your mind. You might be thinking about whether this is true. You might be thinking about your day. You might be thinking about thinking. Notice how you can observe these thoughts without being consumed by them. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that witnesses them. This recognition is profound. Most people believe they are their thoughts. They identify completely with the voice in their head. When the voice is angry, they believe they are angry. When the voice is worried, they believe they are worried. When the voice is sad, they believe they are sad. But if you can observe your thoughts, if you can witness your emotions, then who is doing the observing? This observer, this witness, this awareness that you are minus, this is your true self. This is where your real power resides, not in your thoughts, not in your emotions, not in your reactions, but in the silent awareness that watches it all. The ancient masters knew this truth. They understood that consciousness itself is like the sky. Clouds come and go, minus thoughts, emotions, experience, but the sky remains unchanged. The sky doesn't become cloudy when clouds appear. The sky simply holds space for whatever arises. You are that sky. Your awareness is vast, open and unchanging. Your thoughts and emotions are like weather patterns moving through this vast space of consciousness. They come, they intensify, they pass away, but you remain. When you truly understand this, you stop taking your thoughts so seriously. You stop believing every emotion that passes through you. You stop reacting to every stimulus in your environment. You begin to respond from a place of stillness. This stillness is not emptiness. This stillness is not inaction. This stillness is pregnant with infinite potential, like the archer who draws back the bow, creating tension in the silence before release. The power builds in the stillness. The accuracy comes from the calm. Most people fear this stillness because they've never experienced it. They've been so busy doing, having, achieving that they've forgotten how to simply be. They've lost touch with the part of themselves that needs nothing, wants nothing, lacks nothing. But this part of you exists. It has always existed. It exists right now as you hear these words. You are complete exactly as you are in this moment. You don't need to fix yourself. You don't need to improve yourself. You don't need to become someone else. You need to remember who you already are, beneath all the noise, beneath all the doing, beneath all the seeking. The wave thinks it needs to become the ocean, not realizing it was never separate from the ocean to begin with. When you stop trying to become something, you start being everything you already are. When you stop trying to get somewhere, you realize you're already here. When you stop trying to find yourself, you realize you were never lost. This recognition doesn't come through thinking about it. It comes through experiencing it. And you experience it in moments of complete presence, complete stillness, complete silence. Right now, can you feel the aliveness in your body? Can you sense the energy that animates your physical form? This energy doesn't think. This energy doesn't worry. This energy doesn't plan or regret or hope or fear. This energy simply is connect with this aliveness. Rest in this presence. This is your true nature. This is your natural state. This is who you are when you're not busy being someone. From this state of being, right action arises naturally. You don't need to force it. You don't need to figure it out. You don't need to make it happen. When you're aligned with your true nature, life flows through you effortlessly. But alignment requires stillness. Clarity requires silence. Power requires presence. The world will try to pull you back into the noise. Society profits from your distraction. Your ego thrives on drama. Your mind loves problems to solve. They will all conspire to keep you from this simple truth. You already have everything you need within you. The businessman chases success, but never feels successful. The social seeker accumulates followers, but never feels loved. The pleasure seeker indulges every desire, but never feels satisfied. They're all looking outside themselves for what can only be found within. You don't need to make this mistake. You don't need to prove your worth to anyone. You don't need to justify your existence. You don't need to earn your right to be here. You belong here simply because you are here. Your presence is your permission. Your being is your blessing. When you truly know this, you stop seeking approval from others. You stop comparing yourself to others. You stop competing with others. You realize that your journey is uniquely yours, and no one else can walk it for you. This is when your real life begins. Not the life you think you should live. Not the life others expect you to live. Not the life you've been conditioned to want, but the life that wants to live through you. This life doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It whispers in quiet moments. It reveals itself in simple pleasures. It expresses itself through authentic action. It manifests through presence, not performance. Most people miss this life because they're too busy chasing the life they think they want. They're so focused on the destination that they miss the journey. They're so concerned with becoming that they forget about being. But every master knows that mastery is not a destination. Mastery is a way of being. You don't arrive at mastery. You practice mastery moment by moment, choice by choice, breath by breath. The master chef doesn't rush through preparation. Each cut is deliberate. Each seasoning is intentional. Each moment of cooking is fully present. The meal becomes an expression of consciousness, not just a task to complete. The master craftsman doesn't hurry to finish. Each stroke of the brush carries his full attention. Each chisel strike contains his complete awareness. The creation becomes an extension of his being, not merely the product of his effort. The master teacher doesn't fill silence with words. She knows when to speak and when to listen. Her presence teaches more than her words. Her being transmits wisdom that concepts cannot convey. In each case, mastery emerges from presence, from stillness, from the ability to be completely here, completely now, completely engaged with what is. This is the path you're being called to walk. Not the path of more doing, but the path of deeper being. Not the path of louder expression, but the path of quieter presence. Not the path of external achievement, but the path of internal alignment. The path begins where you are. It begins now. It begins with this breath, this moment, this choice to turn your attention inward instead of constantly seeking outward. You have spent years, perhaps decades, believing that happiness, peace, and fulfillment exist somewhere else, in some other circumstance, with some other person, at some other time, in some other place. But what if they exist here? What if they exist now? What if they exist within you? What if the very thing you've been seeking has been seeking you? What if the peace you crave is actually your natural state? What if the love you desire is actually what you are? What if the power you want is actually what you've always been? The seeker never finds, because seeking implies that what you're looking for is separate from you. But you cannot be separate from what you are. You cannot find what you've never lost. You cannot become what you already are. This is the final paradox. The search ends when the seeker disappears. The question dissolves when the questioner realizes they are the answer. The journey completes when the traveler discovers they were always home. In silence, this truth reveals itself. In stillness, this recognition dawns. In presence, this understanding becomes lived experience. The mountain doesn't try to be powerful. The mountain is power. The ocean doesn't try to be deep. The ocean is depth. The sky doesn't try to be vast. The sky is vastness. You don't need to try to be whole. You are wholeness itself. You don't need to try to be enough. You are enoughness itself. You don't need to try to be worthy. You are worth itself. When this knowing settles into your bones, when this truth becomes your foundation, when this recognition guides your choices, everything shifts, not because you're doing anything differently, but because you're being who you truly are. And from this authentic being, right action flows naturally. Appropriate responses arise spontaneously. Perfect timing reveals itself effortlessly. Life begins to support you because you're no longer fighting against your true nature. This is what it means for everything to fall into place. Not that external circumstances conform to your desires, but that you align with the deeper intelligence that orchestrates all of life. You stop swimming against the current and discover that the river has always been flowing toward your highest good. The current is flowing right now. The invitation is extended right now. The choice is available right now. Will you continue to struggle against the flow, or will you surrender into the current that knows exactly where you need to go? But surrender without structure is mere wishful thinking. Understanding without practice remains philosophy. Recognition without application stays trapped in the mind. You need pillars. You need foundations. You need practices that transform insight into lived reality. 4 pillars support this temple of silent mastery. 4 foundations upon which your transformation rests. 4 practices that convert knowing into being. Each pillar stands strong on its own, yet together they create an unshakable structure for your awakening. The first pillar is the art of conscious observation. Most people look but never truly see. They witness events but miss the deeper patterns. They experience life but remain unconscious of the experience itself. You must learn to see with the eyes of the eagle, soaring high above the landscape of your existence. The eagle doesn't get caught in the drama of the forest. The eagle sees the whole ecosystem. The eagle observes without attachment. From this elevated perspective, what seemed like chaos reveals itself as perfect order. What appeared random shows its underlying intelligence. What felt overwhelming becomes manageable. Right now, observe your own mind. Don't try to control your thoughts. Don't judge what you find. Simply watch. Notice how thoughts arise from nowhere. Dance in your awareness for a moment, then dissolve back into nothing. They come uninvited. They leave without permission. You are not creating them. You are witnessing them. This witnessing is your superpower. Most people are so identified with their thoughts that they believe they are their thoughts. When you learn to observe your thoughts without becoming them, you reclaim your freedom. You realize that you are the space in which thoughts appear, not the thoughts themselves. But observation without breath is merely intellectual exercise. This brings us to the second pillar, your breath as the bridge between body and consciousness. Your breath is always available. Your breath is always honest. Your breath never lies about your current state. When you're anxious, your breath becomes shallow and rapid. When you're angry, your breath becomes forceful and irregular. When you're peaceful, your breath becomes slow and rhythmic. Your breath is the most accurate barometer of your inner weather. But here's what most people don't understand. The relationship works both ways. Just as your emotional state affects your breathing affects your emotional state. Change your breath, change your state. Master your breath, master your experience. Breathe in for 4 counts. Hold for 4 counts. Breathe out for 6 counts. Feel how this simple shift immediately changes your physiology. Feel how your nervous system begins to calm. Feel how your mind starts to quiet. This is not magic. This is mastery of the fundamental life force that animates your being. The deep ocean remains calm regardless of the storms raging on the surface. Your breath connects you to this oceanic depths within yourself. No matter what chaos surrounds you, no matter what turbulence disturbs your surface thoughts, you can always return to the steady rhythm of conscious breathing. Practice this now. Make your exhale longer than your inhale. This activates your parasympathetic nervous system minus your body's natural relaxation response. You're literally rewiring your nervous system with each conscious breath. You're teaching your body that safety is your natural state, not stress. Most people live in constant fight or flight mode. Their nervous systems are perpetually activated, looking for threats that don't exist. They react to emails like they're escaping from predators. They respond to traffic like they're fighting for their lives. Their bodies can't distinguish between real danger and imagined stress. But you can train your system differently. You can teach your nervous system to default to calm rather than chaos. You can program your body to expect peace rather than panic. Every conscious breath is a vote for the life you want to create. This conscious breathing creates space. And in this space you encounter the third pillar minus the gap between stimulus and response. This gap is where your freedom lives. This gap is where your power resides. This gap is where transformation becomes possible. Viktor Frankl understood this truth in the most extreme circumstances imaginable. Even in the concentration camps he realized that no one could take away his ability to choose his response to any situation. They could control his external circumstances, but they could not control his internal response. You face the same choice every moment of every day. Something happens. Someone cuts you off in traffic, your boss criticizes your work, your partner says something hurtful, your child refuses to listen, and in that moment you have a choice. You can react automatically, or you can respond consciously. Reaction is instantaneous. Reaction is emotional. Reaction is unconscious. Reaction creates more problems than it solves. Reaction keeps you trapped in patterns that no longer serve you. Response is considered. Response is conscious. Response is empowered. Response creates solutions. Response breaks old patterns and creates new possibilities. The master swordsman wins the battle before drawing his sword because he has mastered this gap. His presence alone changes the energy of conflict. His calm certainty makes opponents doubt themselves. He doesn't need to prove his skill because his skill has become his being. You can develop this same presence, not through years of sword training but through moment-by-moment awareness of the space between what happens to you and how you choose to respond. Every time you pause before reacting, you strengthen this muscle of conscious choice. Every time you choose response over reaction, you reclaim a piece of your power. Watch how most people move through their days. They bounce from reaction to reaction like pinballs in a machine. Someone pushes their buttons and they automatically respond in predictable ways. They're prisoners of their own conditioning, slaves to their own unconscious patterns. But you can step out of this machine. You can refuse to be predictable. You can choose to respond from your highest self rather than your wounded ego. You can break the chains of automatic behavior and create new patterns aligned with who you're becoming. This is the warrior's path. Not the warrior who fights external enemies, but the warrior who conquers the unconscious patterns within. Not the warrior who dominates others, but the warrior who masters himself. Not the warrior who seeks victory over opponents, but the warrior who finds peace within conflict. The ancient warriors understood that the greatest battles are fought within. They knew that external victory means nothing if you're still at war with yourself. They practice daily disciplines not to defeat others but to defeat the parts of themselves that kept them small, reactive and unconscious. Your daily practice is your training ground. Every moment of conscious breathing is preparation for the real battles of life. Every pause before reacting is strengthening your warrior spirit. Every choice to respond rather than react is building your character. This brings us to the fourth pillar, shifting your locus of power from external to internal. Most people live as if their happiness, their peace, their success depends entirely on external circumstances. They give their power away to situations they cannot control, to people who don't care about their well-being, to outcomes they cannot guarantee. They say things like, "I'll be happy when I get that promotion," or "I'll feel peaceful when this problem is solved," or "I'll be confident when other people approve of me." They've made their internal state dependent on external conditions. They've become prisoners of circumstances beyond their control. But what if your happiness didn't depend on getting what you want? What if your peace didn't require perfect circumstances? What if your confidence came from within rather than from others' opinions? This is not passive acceptance of poor treatment or bad situations. This is not about becoming a doormat or avoiding necessary action. This is about recognizing where your real leverage lies. This is about understanding what you can actually control versus what you cannot. You cannot control other people's behavior, but you can control your response to their behavior. You cannot control external outcomes, but you can control the quality of your effort. You cannot control what happens to you, but you can control what you make it mean. Think of a tree with strong roots. The tree doesn't fight against the wind. The tree doesn't resist the storm. The tree bends without breaking because its foundation is solid. Its strength comes from below, not from trying to control the weather above. Your roots are your daily practices. Your roots are your conscious choices. Your roots are your commitment to growth, regardless of external conditions. When your roots are strong, you can weather any storm. When your foundation is solid, you cannot be easily shaken. This internal strength has a magnetic quality. When you stop seeking approval from others, you become more approachable. When you stop trying to control outcomes, you influence situations more effectively. When you stop needing external validation, you attract genuine respect. People sense authenticity. They're drawn to those who are comfortable in their own skin. They trust those who don't need anything from them. They respect those who stand firm in their values, regardless of social pressure. But this magnetism is not your goal. This influence is not your objective. These are simply natural consequences of living from your authentic center. When you focus on being rather than seeming, when you concentrate on substance rather than appearance, when you prioritize integrity over image, these qualities naturally emerge. The sun doesn't try to warm the earth. Warmth is the sun's nature. The river doesn't try to nourish the land. Nourishment flows naturally from the river's being. You don't need to try to be influential or magnetic or inspiring. When you align with your true nature, these qualities express themselves effortlessly. Your true nature is consciousness itself. Your essence is awareness. Your core identity is the witness that observes all experience without being diminished by any experience. This witness consciousness is always peaceful, always whole, always complete. When you rest in this awareness, when you identify with this witness rather than with the thoughts and emotions that pass through it, you access an unshakable sense of well-being. Not happiness that depends on circumstances, but peace that transcends circumstances. Not confidence that requires external validation, but certainty that comes from knowing who you truly are. This knowing doesn't come through thinking about it. This recognition doesn't arise through analysis. This understanding emerges through direct experience. And direct experience happens in moments of complete presence, complete stillness, complete attention to what is. Right now, as you listen to these words, you can access this presence. Right now, you can rest in this awareness. Right now, you can experience the peace that is your birthright. Not by going somewhere else or becoming someone else, but by recognizing what you already are in this moment. Feel the aliveness in your body. Sense the awareness that perceives these words. Notice the space of consciousness in which all your experiences arise. This space is vast, open, and unchanging. This space is what you are. Your thoughts come and go in this space. Your emotions rise and fall in this space. Your experience appear and disappear in this space. But the space itself remains constant, unaffected, at peace. When you know yourself as this space, you stop taking the temporary contents of consciousness so seriously. You stop believing every thought that arises. You stop being overwhelmed by every emotion that passes through. You stop identifying with every role you play. You realize that you are not your job title. You are not your relationship status. You are not your financial situation. You are not your past mistakes. You are not your future fears. You are the awareness in which all these identities appear and disappear. This recognition is liberation. This understanding is freedom. This knowing is the end of suffering caused by mistaken identity. You don't suffer because of what happens to you. You suffer because you believe you are something you're not. When you know what you truly are, you stop trying to protect an image that was never real. You stop defending a position that was never true. You stop fighting battles that were never necessary. You relax into the truth of your being, and from this relaxation, appropriate action arises naturally. You don't need to figure out what to do. You don't need to plan every move. You don't need to control every outcome. When you're aligned with your true nature, life moves through you with intelligence and grace. The right actions arise at the right times. The perfect words come when needed. The appropriate responses flow naturally from your being. This is what it means to live from the inside out, rather than the outside in. This is what it means to be self-sourced, rather than externally dependent. This is what it means to find your center and operate from that center regardless of external circumstances. These 4 pillars, minus conscious observation, masterful breathing, the space of conscious response, and internal locus of power, create the foundation for a completely different way of being. Not a way of being that you have to learn, but a way of being that you have to remember. Not a way of being that you have to earn, but a way of being that you have to uncover. The construction begins now. The foundation is laid with each conscious breath. The structure rises with each moment of awareness. The temple of your awakening is built one present moment at a time, one conscious choice at a time, one authentic response at a time. But knowledge without application is merely entertainment. Understanding without practice remains philosophy. Insight without integration stays trapped in the mind. You need daily disciplines that transform these principles into lived reality. You need practices that make this wisdom as natural as breathing. How do you maintain this consciousness when the world demands your attention? How do you stay centered when chaos surrounds you? How do you remember who you are when everyone else has forgotten? The answer lies not in grand gestures but in small, consistent choices. Not in dramatic transformations but in subtle shifts repeated daily. Not in perfection but in persistent return to presence. Your morning sets the tone for everything that follows. Most people begin their day in reaction mode. They reach for their phone before their feet touch the floor. They fill their mind with other people's priorities before clarifying their own. They start running before they remember where they're going. But you can choose differently. You can claim the first moments of consciousness as sacred territory. You can use the transition from sleep to waking as a doorway into presence. Before you move, before you think, before you plan, breathe 3 slow conscious breaths that announce to your nervous system that today will be different. 3 intentional inhales that fill not just your lungs but your entire being with awareness. 3 deliberate exhales that release yesterday's concerns and tomorrow's anxieties. In this space between sleep and activity, you have a choice. You can either grab your phone and immediately scatter your attention across 1,000 different concerns, or you can spend 5 minutes connecting with the part of yourself that remains constant regardless of external circumstances. Sit quietly, feel your body, notice the aliveness that animates your physical form. This aliveness doesn't need improvement. This energy doesn't require fixing. This presence is already perfect exactly as it is. Set your intention for the day, not your goals or your tasks or your achievements, but your way of being. How do you want to show up today? What quality of presence do you want to bring to your interactions? Who do you want to be regardless of what happens? This intention becomes your anchor. When the day becomes chaotic, you can return to this intention. When you lose your center, you can remember who you chose to be. When you get pulled into drama, you can recall your commitment to presence. The master craftsman prepares his tools before beginning work. The master chef organizes her ingredients before cooking. You are both craftsman and chef of your own experience. Your morning practice is your preparation for the artistry of living. But morning intention without midday awareness becomes merely wishful thinking. Throughout your day, you need reminders to return to presence. You need triggers that call you back to consciousness. You need practices that interrupt the trance of automatic living. Your breath is always available as a reset button in any moment, regardless of what's happening around you. You can take 3 conscious breaths and return to your center. You can use traffic lights as reminders to breathe. You can use doorways as invitations to presence. You can use phone calls as opportunities to pause and connect with yourself before connecting with others. The key is consistency, not perfection. You don't need to maintain perfect awareness every moment of every day. You need to consistently return to awareness when you notice you've wandered. You need to gently redirect your attention back to presence without judgment or self-criticism. Think of training a puppy. When the puppy wanders off, you don't scold it harshly. You gently call it back. You redirect its attention with kindness and patience. You understand that training takes time and repetition. Your mind is like this puppy. It will wander, it will get distracted. It will chase every interesting thought or emotion that passes by. Your job is not to prevent this wandering, but to notice when it happens and gently redirect your attention back to the present moment. Each time you notice you've been lost in thought and return to awareness, you strengthen your capacity for presence. Each time you catch yourself reacting and choose to respond instead, you build your conscious response muscle. This is not about becoming perfect. This is about becoming conscious of your patterns, so you can choose new ones. This is not about never getting triggered. This is about shortening the time between trigger and recovery. This is not about avoiding all emotional reactions. This is about responding to your emotions consciously rather than being controlled by them. Most people live their entire lives unconsciously repeating the same patterns, reacting in the same ways, making the same choices, and wondering why their life doesn't change. They want different results, but they keep doing the same things. They want to feel different, but they keep thinking the same thoughts. They want new experiences, but they keep being the same person. You are breaking this cycle. You are interrupting these patterns. You are choosing consciousness over automaticity. With each conscious breath, with each mindful pause, with each authentic response, you are literally rewiring your brain. You are creating new neural pathways. You are establishing new defaults. The transformation is not always dramatic. Often it's subtle. You might notice that things that used to trigger you no longer have the same effect. You might find that you naturally respond with more patience in situations that used to make you reactive. You might realize that you're less concerned with others' opinions and more connected to your own inner guidance. People around you will begin to notice something different about you. They might not be able to put their finger on what's changed, but they'll sense a shift in your energy. You'll seem more grounded, more present, more at ease with yourself. You'll have a quality of attention that makes others feel heard and seen. This is not because you're doing anything to them. This is because you're being authentically yourself. When you're not preoccupied with managing your image or controlling outcomes, you can give others the gift of your genuine presence. When you're not lost in your own mental drama, you can actually listen to what they're saying. Your relationships begin to change not because you're trying to change them, but because you've changed. You stop trying to fix other people because you've stopped believing you're broken. You stop seeking validation from others because you've found your own center. You stop taking things personally because you know who you are beyond others' opinions. At work, you might find that you're less stressed by deadlines and more focused on quality. You might notice that you're less reactive to criticism and more open to feedback. You might realize that you're less competitive with colleagues and more collaborative in your approach. This shift happens naturally when you stop deriving your sense of worth from external achievements and start connecting with your intrinsic value. Your work becomes an expression of your consciousness rather than a desperate attempt to prove your worth. You perform better not because you're trying harder, but because you're not fighting against yourself. In your family relationships, you might discover that you're less triggered by old dynamics and more capable of responding with love even when others are acting from fear. You might find that you're less reactive to criticism from family members and more able to see their comments as expressions of their own pain rather than accurate assessments of your character. This transformation in relationships is perhaps the most profound indicator that real change is happening. When you can remain centered in the presence of people who used to push all your buttons, you know that you've accessed something deeper than your conditioned responses. When you can respond with compassion to those who are attacking you, you know that you've connected with your true nature. But remember, this is not about becoming passive or accepting mistreatment. This is about responding from wisdom rather than woundedness. Sometimes wisdom says to set clear boundaries. Sometimes wisdom says to walk away. Sometimes wisdom says to speak your truth with firm kindness. The difference is that these responses come from a place of centered strength rather than reactive weakness. Your energy becomes more focused and less scattered. Instead of trying to do everything, you naturally prioritize what truly matters. Instead of saying yes to every request, you learn to honor your own needs and limitations. Instead of seeking to please everyone, you become comfortable with disappointing some people in order to remain true to yourself. This focus creates a compound effect because you're not dissipating your energy in 1,000 different directions. You have more power available for what genuinely deserves your attention. Because you're not constantly reacting to external demands, you can respond from your authentic priorities. Because you're not trying to be all things to all people, you can be truly helpful to those who genuinely need your unique gifts. Your decision-making becomes clearer and more intuitive. Instead of endlessly analyzing every choice, You learn to trust the wisdom that emerges from stillness. Instead of seeking advice from everyone around you, you develop confidence in your own inner guidance. Instead of making decisions based on fear or social pressure, you choose based on what feels aligned with your deepest truths. This doesn't mean your decisions are always perfect or that you never make mistakes. It means that you're making choices from a place of authenticity rather than conditioning. It means that even when things don't work out as planned, you can trust that you acted from integrity. It means that you're living your own life rather than the life others expect you to live. The ripple effects of your transformation extend far beyond your personal experience. Your family members notice that you're more present and less reactive. Your colleagues sense that you're more reliable and less dramatic. Your friends appreciate that you're more genuine and less performative. But these changes in others are not your responsibility or your goal. These are simply natural consequences of your own alignment. When you stop trying to change everyone around you and focus on your own consciousness, everyone around you has space to be who they truly are. When you stop projecting your own issues onto others, you can see them clearly for the first time. Your very presence becomes an invitation for others to access their own authenticity, not through preaching or teaching or advice giving, but through modeling what it looks like to be genuinely comfortable in your own skin. Not through trying to fix them, but through demonstrating that it's possible to be at peace regardless of external circumstances. This is true leadership, not the kind that demands followers, but the kind that inspires others to find their own path. Not the kind that insists on compliance, but the kind that encourages authenticity. Not the kind that seeks power over others, but the kind that empowers others to find their own strengths. You become a refuge of sanity in a world that often seems chaotic. You become a source of calm in environments that tend toward drama. You become an anchor of presence in situations that pull toward reactivity. Not because you're trying to be these things, but because these qualities naturally emerge when you're aligned with your true nature. But remember, this transformation is not a destination you arrive at. It's a way of traveling. It's not a problem you solve once and for all. It's a practice you engage with daily. It's not a state you achieve and then maintain effortlessly. It's a choice you make moment by moment, breath by breath, response by response. Some days will be easier than others. Some moments you'll feel completely centered and aware. Other moments you'll find yourself caught in old patterns of reactivity. This is normal. This is human. This is part of the process. The key is not to judge yourself when you fall back into unconscious patterns, but to simply notice and return to presence. The key is not to expect perfection, but to appreciate progress. The key is not to compare your internal experience to others' external appearances, but to trust your own unique path of awakening. Every moment offers a fresh opportunity to choose consciousness over automaticity. Every breath provides a new chance to return to presence. Every interaction presents another invitation to respond from your authentic self rather than your conditioned patterns. The path of silent mastery is not about withdrawing from the world. It's about engaging with the world from a place of centered strength rather than scattered reactivity. It's not about avoiding challenges. It's about meeting challenges from a place of inner stability rather than external chaos. You began this conversation believing that power required noise, that strength demanded proclamation, that success needed advertisement. Now you understand that true power whispers, real strength requires no proof, authentic success needs no external validation. The mountain stands silent and unmoved, yet shapes every river, every wind, every cloud that encounters its presence. You have become like this mountain, not separate from the flow of life, but so grounded in your own being that life flows around you and through you with grace rather than resistance. Your silence has become eloquent. Your stillness has become powerful. Your presence has become magnetic. Not because you've gained something you didn't have before, but because you've remembered something you never lost. You are the awareness in which all experience arises. You are the consciousness that witnesses all thoughts and emotions without being diminished by any of them. You are the peace that exists beneath all surface turbulence. You are the love that remains constant regardless of external circumstances. This is not a philosophy to believe. This is not a concept to understand. This is your lived reality when you stop looking outside yourself for what you already are. This is your natural state when you stop trying to become someone else and start being who you've always been. The loudest victories are indeed won in complete silence. Your victory is not over others, but over the unconscious patterns that once controlled your life. Your triumph is not in external achievement, but in internal alignment. Your success is not in having everything you want, but in wanting nothing other than what this moment offers. Everything has fallen into place not because external circumstances have arranged themselves according to your desires, but because you have aligned yourself with the intelligence that orchestrates all of life. You have stopped swimming against the current and allowed the river of existence to carry you toward your highest good. The current continues to flow. The invitation remains open. The choice is always available. In this moment, and this moment, and this moment, forever and always now.